Hello again. Okay, so a few videos ago I talked about Amelia and the whole pathways game being taught in some British schools. And I intended to go into more detail on like the public perception and stuff like that as well. But since I was calling the game a brainwashing propaganda thing, which it is, I wanted to go into more detail on that and actually go through the game to sort of show why I say that rather than just dropping that and going on and giving no defense of it, that position. Um, Largely, if I wanted to just say it's racist, it's propaganda, it's whatever, and then leave it at that, I would be sitting in a car dropping the f bomb and posting on TikTok. I don't want to do that. So today I want to go more to the response to Amelia. Now I let some time pass between these because, of course, more information popped up. Excuse me. So I wanted to dig into some more stuff before I made this one. So I owe a lot of this first part to a Lady Decade. She is a British woman who basically reviews video games, and she did a couple of videos talking about Amelia. Um, so it wasn't the government itself, as we would say, you know, not your typical government, let's say, or as we would say in America, but it was the whole city council in, along with Shout Out UK, and Shout Out UK is an independent company, and the whole city council is dominated by the Liberal Democratic Party (LDP), and I'm not saying they're the Democrat Party and they're liberal. That's the name of the party, Liberal Democratic Party. So I just want, like I said, I don't want confuse people in America that I'm just making fun of Democrats. This is the name of the party. According to Lady Decade, they are not the most popular on the national level, but they do a lot in local. So they win a lot of local elections. They lose a lot of national elections. So and that's one thing because a lot of people, you got Keir Starmer, who, again, as I make this video, he is still the prime minister, but he looks like he might be on his way out. Um, he is, a lot of people responding. They link Amelia to his policies because in the game she is sort of linked to his policies. But to say he himself had anything to do with the game is going off because again it was done locally with funds from Prevent UK, which is a national uh, organization. But so it makes sense that they would, if you want, we eventually are going to need someone from the national government to stamp an approval on it. So it would make sense that they would lean it towards the views of the current ruling party. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the prime minister himself is the one who rubber stamped it. And also, like I said, they were. This would be like the far left party in Britain. So the Liberal Democratic Party (LDP), they're like the radical. I mean, a lot of people, and the American Democratic Party would look at this and say, "Wait a second, that's a little extreme for us, even." Most people. So, because again, a lot of the response videos have Amelia against Keir Starmer when he really didn't have a lot to do with this. In fact, I looked up, what has he actually said about Amelia, and very little actually. He hasn't jumped forward and commented on it or said it's super evil or anything like that. he disagrees with it because, again, it goes against his politics, but he hasn't made a big deal like other people have. So he's actually, quote unquote, innocent on this part. But it's this, like I said, it's these smaller groups which don't have as much national influence who are more behind it. Now, one thing I will criticize Lady Decade on is she said this has been going on. This is nothing new, which it isn't. So basically, the game has been out for 2 years. So it was a Daily Telegraph story, UK Telegraph, which brought it to national attention. And I think, according to what I've seen, the UK Telegraph is a more right-leaning newspaper, so that would explain why anyone else was ignoring it. But it's been around for 2 years. Then the part where she goes off the rails, in my opinion, is she says that this has been going on since 2003, and funding for it and all this other stuff has been going on since 2003, and that I disagree with. Like I said in the last video, Prevent is a program which has been around since 2003, and its basic function is to try to keep people from being radicalized. But the Pathways game was not in the works since 2003. Again, I don't know how long does it take to make a video game. I don't know, but it's probably less than 5 years in the making. That's just a guess, but it's definitely not 2003 because the Prevent program was from 2003. The Pathways game is newer than that, and so Lady Decade coming out and saying, "Oh, this is they were ready to fund this back in 2003." She makes that comment, and I disagree with that. Now, Shout Out UK was the company behind it. She goes into Matteo Bergamini is the head of that, and he, according to her, he's an anti-populist. Basically, he likes the idea of don't discuss things, just do what people say. And he's made a lot of statements to that in the past. We did see in the game the first choice you had to make was: do you download something, or do you go to a trusted source to learn more about it? And the trusted source in this case was his mom, which was a good thing. But again, according to what Lady Decade said about Matteo Bergamini, trusted source means do what the elites tell you. Some government elite's going to tell you to do something. He's anti-populist, so basically don't discuss things. Populism does include things like protests, but it also includes things as just having an open discussion. Okay, also according to her, they are planning on doing something called Click Smart here in the United States. Now, the whole purpose, again, the purpose is to teach kids to be careful about what they do on the internet. And that I agree with. What I disagree with was that in 5 modules, they managed to claim that all the radicals are one particular person. Prevent's actual site talks about, it primarily deals with Islamist and right-wing radicalization, which, okay, so why don't we, in these 5 modules, why don't we have at least one dealing with Islamist radicalization? And so, again, because to do that would be to go against the standard now, like I said, Starmer, I'm probably mispronouncing that. He's not really behind this game, but he is very strong on aliens coming in, migration. especially he himself is a Muslim, so he's very strong on pro-Islam. So having the game question that, we can't exactly do that. So that's one reason why Bergamini might have left that out. But at the same time, we got 5 modules. They all deal with the same thing. I will also point out that, as I said in the past, Europe and the United Kingdom, left, right, don't mean the same things as they do here in America. And what they describe as right versus left, a lot of American left wing modern day protest slash violence would be categorized as right wing. The Minnesota anti-ICE protest would be right wing according to what the Prevent website calls right wing. Naturally, most of these school shootings, which have been done by pro-trans people, pro-leftists, etc., would have been labeled as right wing just because they dealt with mass casualties. According to their definition, right wing extremism deals with mass casualties, left wing extremism just deals with property damage, which is not the way it goes. Sure, left wingers do a lot of property damage here in the U.S., but they also unalive people. So, like I said, this is British politics versus American politics. How does that weigh in? Anyway, so off with that. Now, other people are complaining, so let's see. Oh, one more thing before we leave Prevent. So apparently Prevent has had a list of books which might radicalize people. Included in these were the writings of Kipling, Tolkien, basically some of your major British writers that we might have studied here in school. Some of these, like Kipling, he was very pro-colonialism. Tolkien falls into a class, I learned about this genre recently, British comfort fantasy. And basically what it is after World War I, which was a very new war, back before World War I, you pretty much had to see your enemy. And, World War I, we got the airplane, we got the large artillery units. You could attack someone from a distance and not have to ever look at them. And you never knew where the attack was coming, when it was coming, so your entire life was disrupted if you were starving in the war. It wasn't what people were used to. And so they came up with a lot of soldiers who also wrote, came up with what's known as British comfort fantasy, where they created these worlds. Tolkien, he had the Shire, which was a normal British countryside type place. And yes, they had to leave the Shire to fight absolute evil, because there were standards of absolute good, absolute evil, stuff like that. And apparently, Prevent doesn't like this concept of absolute good, absolute evil, or the comfort zone. This is our comfort zone, and we just don't want people invading it. Could be a right or wrong philosophy, but it is understandable, especially with the books. The authors, what they went through. It is understandable why that philosophy exists. But we want to write that out of British culture, apparently. Okay, so Amelia herself is described as the purple-haired goth by a lot of people. And I got to question that. Is she really goth? In the game, she looks more like dark red hair rather than purple hair, in my opinion at least. The response videos people are making make her as purple hair, but it's more of a neon purple, lighter purple. Is that really goth? Interesting thing, again, here in America, you would associate goth with the left more often than with the right. Um, I don't know how the British associate them. I do know, like back in the 80s, we had punk, and again, here in America, we associated punks with the left. And in Britain, it really sort of went across the political spectrum. So there were right wing punks, there were left wing punks. So maybe that's happening with goth as well. I don't know. I would also say, okay, so she wears a choker and she has dark red hair or purple hair if you want to go by other people's responses. Aside from that, is she goth? Again, the AI images people are creating of her, she looks more like an anime fangirl than anything else to me. She got the bright hair. Yeah, she still has the choker, but she's like dressed more as an anime fan girl than a goth. Um, don't know about that. So some of these videos, again, they got her making fun of Keir Starmer. Or in some, he's raving against her or whatever. When in reality, he really hasn't said that much against her publicly. Um, so that's another thing. Although again, she's generally against his policies, and in the game, she's generally against his policies. So I can see where that comes from. But in reality, he really hasn't said much about her. So got to be careful about that. What else we got? Oh, some people are complaining, when she's being overly sexualized. And my response to that is, A, these are AI images, so it is the internet which is overly sexualizing her, if anyone. B, she is not being overly sexualized in these videos, and most of them at least. Some people I will admit, yes, I've seen some where it's like, yeah, you're trying to sexualize her. Most of them she's not. In reality, I would say that in the video games, or in the Pathways game, she is being under-sexualized. In fact, most of the women in that game, they could just as easily be a man with a wig and a dress. There's no real attempt to make them look feminine at all. I think that is one of the problems people are having, is she is being portrayed as being feminine in some of these. She's not being overly sexualized, she's just feminine. I will also criticize, there are some people whose argument is always just to, well, you're trying to, you just want to sleep with her. And they don't have real argument. I saw one response video. The presenter agreed with the whole Amelia thing. She was against what the government was doing, etc. But at the same time, she was left-leaning herself. And so she basically accused most of the people who watched Amelia videos and stuff as wanting to sleep with her. And this goes back to the whole, let's not sit in our car, dropping the F-bomb and posting on TikTok. If you're going to say something like that, let's give an actual reason why. And they don't. But that is something, some people, they just want to, you're just thinking about sex and you don't really care about the politics. No, it doesn't work like that. So there have supposedly been some foreign Amelias popping up. And I say supposedly because I looked into some of these. So, German Amelia, so let's jump back to British Amelia. British Amelia, there is one video, it's just her talking. Hi, I'm Amelia. I like fish and chips at my local pub. I like beer. I like, Shakespeare, and it's, goes through all the stuff. Now I saw the German version, who is called Maria, apparently. And it's basically the same video translated into German with German food and German authors and stuff like that filled in. So I gotta wonder, is that a legitimate German-made video, or is that something an English person just translated the British Amelia and give her a different name? Um, that's a worthwhile question to ask, just because again, it is pretty much the exact same thing. Irish one, very different. It's in English, so I could understand what she was saying, and yes, does bring up different things. Calls herself, I think, Amelia Fagan. So still calls herself Amelia, just gives herself a last name. So I would say that one's probably more real. Saw one music video, supposedly in French. It's been 30 years since I took French or even had to speak it, so my French is very bad. But there are some things going on in this video where it's like, is that how a French person would have phrased that or not? It looks sort of like someone wrote the song in English, then ran it through a online translator. I could be wrong on that again, just because it's been a long time since I've taken French. But that one's questionable. Similar, I've seen one in Italian, which I don't speak Italian, and again, it was another music video, so don't know. So, are there foreign Amelias? And some people say yes, some people say no. Again, most of the people I see commenting on it are Americans or native English speakers. So, how much they go into the actual language, or do they understand the language these videos are being made in, and can they comment on that? So, like I said, there are probably some who are real. Again, I think the Irish one is probably real because I can understand what they're saying, and it sounds like it's made differently. Other ones may or may not be real. Because, like I said, if I'm going to accuse the game itself as being propaganda, which I believe it is, I've also got to say some of the people responding to it might be doing so through propaganda. And probably not all, but some of them possibly yes. I had one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I cannot think of it right off the top of my head. Yes, so the music videos. I mean, a lot of them are people, ooh, this is a really banging video, oh, it's really rocking or whatever. And I wonder if they're actually listening to the words or not. Some of them, I think I mentioned in the last video on Amelia, it's just rage against the machine. The system's flawed. And so it's the sort of thing, very generic. There are others which I listen to, and it's like, yes, this is about British culture being replaced or being put aside. Um, some of them I recognize the British references to, and as an American, I probably would have picked them up when I was 30 years old or so, just because I watched. Most of my understanding of British culture came from watching Britcoms on PBS. And as I got older, I traveled over there a few times, learned a little more. But I would have picked up on some of these literary references in some of the songs as a adult. And I'm wondering, would British kids pick up on some of them? Because I've seen videos, kids complaining about learning about foreign cultures, not learning about British culture. So some of the things that I can pick up on these things, that's what they're referring to, this poem or this you know part of British history or whatever. Are there some British kids who would have trouble doing that? And perhaps in modern day, yes. So that is one actual thing to consider is go through, break some of these down, because like I said, most Americans who think, oh, this is just a rocking video, wouldn't catch these references. But I then started to wonder, but would most British children do? And adults, yes. Younger children, maybe not, just because, again, they haven't been getting taught their culture as much as perhaps they should. Which just lends more credence to the whole Amelia phenomena. Also, I do like there are some of these. If you heard them out of cult context, which is basically having Amelia singing them on the video, they sound just nice little quaint songs. And so you might not catch what they're actually talking about. And I could imagine people who hate Amelia hearing some of these songs saying, oh, that's a lovely song, and singing along with it. And not realizing, oh, I'm singing this anti whatever song. So that sort of amuses me. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, I just wanted to go into some more details on Amelia that I wanted to get to last time. This has already stretched on a little longer than I thought it would. Have a nice day.